Okay. So thank you very much everyone
Step
for
into
coming
the
in
future,
today.
bright and bold.
Uh, it's such a vast number. We are going live on
Yeah.
YouTube as well. So thank you very much. I hope we are visible on YouTube. Somebody can check from support team and let me know. Yes, awesome. So we are starting with the session. Thank you very much for joining in today for live session, and we are happy to host you for our sixth session on ESG, uh, and our session names are FutureSCAPE India 2047. Today, we will bring together our journey through ESG Career 2.0, from being a buzzword of past to a $1 billion skill set of today. ESG is no longer an optional subject. Actually, it is driving real businesses and business value and creating a massive opportunity across world. And that's true. Why? Because today with us, people are joining from different side of the world, from Africa, Wendy, from UK, Devam, and we are all talking about this subject. And by the way, Devam has traveled from Australia to UK, so another continent. With 9.6 million green jobs, which is expected to happen by 2030, yes, in India itself, and 30 million jobs by 2030 across world as per WEF data and World Bank's data, demands a faster growing of this skill, growing of the talent. And this is the right time for all of you who are in this sector or not to build a specific skill set in this area and have that ESG expertise which takes you further in your destination. That is why today we have a spectrum covering from technology ERP provider in ESG, which Devam is representing, to specific sides of ESG like water, which impacts environment as well as social fabric of our country, will be discussed in this session. In India today, MSME, which are at the center stage of this discussion, which is a part of supply chain for large company, which anyway are mandatorily following in India and across world sustainability reporting, they contribute to 30% of our GDP. The scope is even higher for professional like you to contribute. So session will help you to connect the skills, roles and opportunities in India as well as involved in ESG. And as we become a developed country by 2047, year 2047, 100 years of India's independence, we expect India to be responsible and sustainable. Hence this program FutureSCAPE. We also expect that you contribute a big time in this industry. And here is the quick look who we are before we go any further. We focus on three key areas of sustainability today. Education certification, this is one of the part where we have our own brand called ESG Pro Master Institute, through which you are joining us. We have a consulting and advisory arm as well, where we provide transaction advisory, sustainable finance, as well as consulting in the area of end-to-end CCTS building or carbon credit building, readiness services, ESG reporting, decarbonization journey. We help you throughout in this journey, along with providing you finance if you are meeting any of the 17 different SDG criteria. We also help community and events, and one of the community work which we do is through FutureSCAPE India 2047, completely voluntary program online, where we are convening professionals, students, CXOs like you and policy makers navigating the India energy transition and carbon economic and overall how world is looking at this today. Right? So welcome to the program. At the core, we aim to turn sustainability into measurable business value, and that's why we exist. What we offer, of course, we offer a certified carbon market professional program, which is a 6-month program where you will learn from basics of GHG accounting till ESG reporting and how to build carbon credit and trade in the market. That complete system we have launched. We support organizations through carbon projects advisory, that how they can convert their compliances into profitability. Again, end-to-end project development, and our corporate readiness workshops help corporates as well as individual who wants to quickly acquire one of the skills in sustainability, be it GHG accounting, be it ESG report writing with GRI, BRSR, CSRD, or any other framework, which is most important one, IFRS S1, S2. So together these offerings, we are building leaders in ESG field today. And I hope today program, which is aligned and agenda is in front of you, will help you to look into this field more curiously and learn what are the nuances are there, right? We will begin now. We have already started. We've followed by insights on building business case for sustainability, and I will be inviting Devam Shah from United Kingdom. Of course, I will be introducing them all. And then session on water, a critical factor most ignored, and that's why we have today Madhukar, who is going to highlight those facts, and he's practicing on hand on saving water and making water a resource and an asset for your company. Listen in very carefully for all three speakers, and then ask your question. You can start asking question from beginning in the chat box. My team member will be capturing those once she announce we are live, and we will be addressing them definitely in the Q&A session, which will start at 4:45. 5:55, not 6 to 15. I will be doing the closing remarks and next step. And finally, we will wrap it up at that point in time. So let's get started. Let me introduce myself. Of course, my name is Vivek Jayasuman. I am a CEO and moderator of this particular session today. With me, Devam Shah, who is the head of sustainability, joining us in ESG sector from UK of Intrinsic. And another speaker, Madhukar Swayambhuji, is with us as well, who is a co-founder and also a research head actually, joining us from Hyderabad. Now, let me introduce myself quickly. I am having expertise in sustainable finance, specifically building sustainability strategy, climate policy for governments as well as for organization. We do a lot of advisory and training. Green finance is my key, where we make lower cost of capital to organizations who are following ESG fundamentals or following ESG reporting. Carbon market ecosystem, we are the small player where we enable carbon credit generation, and we also help a lot of company for energy transition leadership. That's me. Devam Shah, which I am inviting now on the screen as well. And Devam Shah is going to give his first keynote. So let me introduce him. Devam Shah, thank you very much for joining us today. I don't know what's the time in UK, but thank you joining at this point in time. You are a sustainability consultant, a marketing honcho, and ESG specialist with expertise in ESG reporting, emission data management, and sustainability strategy. You also bring experience in stakeholder engagement and sustainability communication. And over to you, Devam. You can share your screen now. I'm stopping my screen, and you can start talking about it. And I think there is some errors there which we'll fix up now, on your introduction.
That's all good. Just let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen. If you can make it full, that will be helpful to all of you.
Absolutely. How's that? Perfect. Thank you for that introduction, Vivek, and nice to see you, everyone. My name is Devam Shah. I'm the head of sustainability and ESG at Anistic, which is a carbon accounting and advisory firm. I've been working in over 3 geographies, Australia, EU, and the UK, on sustainability and ESG reporting. And here I want to talk to you guys about how to communicate the business case for sustainability. So let's get right into it. So there's a credibility gap. Now, you've probably sat in a room where you've presented something that you knew was genuinely urgent and watched the CFO or MD check the phone or zone out. Now, this moment of frustration is universal for sustainability professionals, but the problem is rarely the data, it's the translation. So I'm not going to talk to you why sustainability matters, because you already know that. You know that scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions are important. You know that the planet is warming up, and you know that businesses and the private sector have to align with regulation and governments to reduce their impact on our warming world. You already know that, but this conversation is about making the people who control the budgets and the strategy, so your CFO, your MD, your board, believe and understand why it matters to them. Now, in my experience, there's four sort of currencies or four R's of leadership. And I think every sustainability argument needs to land in at least one of these. Most of the time they land in more, but at least one of these. The first one is risk. So what could go wrong if we don't act? If we don't do this action, what can go wrong? The second is revenue, which is almost opportunity. How does this protect our income or grow our income? What is the financial incentive to do this? The third is reputation. So what do our stakeholders and investors expect? That's our suppliers, that's our customers, that's our employees. And it's resilience. So how does this protect us against future disruption? Our strategy, our plans moving forward. Now, the reason these four currencies are important is because the commercial drivers of sustainability are converging, they're overlapping. The key one being regulation. So in India, SEBI's BRSR, the Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting, is now mandatory for the top 1,000 companies, with the core expanding from 100 to 250. This means that the top 250 companies have to have assured sustainability data. This regulation means that it's not optional anymore. You have to report it, you get audited, you get verified, and you get checked and rated, and you get fined for non-compliance. Procurement, so this is where your suppliers ask you for this information. So key examples from India, Mahindra & Mahindra now has a formal supplier sustainability program for tier 1 suppliers. This means that anyone who's a tier 1 supplier for this organization has to be science-based targets accredited. Tata Motors and Tata Steel are now formalizing their supply chain requirements, and so is Maruti Suzuki. You see this happening in the UK. So the two of our biggest supermarkets, Tesco and Sainsbury's, started this journey maybe 8 years ago. They started evaluating their supply chain, looking at where the gaps were. And now to be a supplier for Tesco or Sainsbury's, you do have to have an SBTI target. You can see where the journey goes by looking at industries like the UK and the EU, and that pathway is being followed by large corporations in India. Capital commercial driver is a big one. So there's 35 trillion assets under management under ESG mandates. Now, this is mainly property development and manufacturing. So life cycle assessments are becoming a lot more common as a requirement. Building projects have an ESG budget, almost, or a carbon budget, I should say, of this development needs to meet this level of tons of carbon to go through. So they're choosing their suppliers based on the lower environmental impact. So there's a clear commercial driver here to reduce your product emissions and report on them. Sustainability linked loans are increasingly common. They price ESG into financing terms. So you get banks looking at your ESG metrics and you reduce your basis points, right? If you meet these metrics. On the flip side, if you don't meet those metrics, your interest goes up on these loans. And these can range from hundreds, tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the size of the loan. And quite pertinent to India, CBAM enforcement is coming into effect. So this is the carbon border adjustment mechanism. If you are importing into the UK in a certain number of industries and you're not disclosing your scope 1 and 2 emissions and a reduction pathway, you'll be subject to incoming tariff and fines. Finally, you have talent and brand. Now, data suggests that 70% of Gen Zs weigh employer ESG commitment before joining. If I've got 2 jobs, I am more likely to pick the one that takes their environmental and social commitments quite seriously. Greenwashing enforcement is tightening. So the Competition and Markets Authority in the UK, the FCA in the UK, the EU, and the SEBI ESG rating in India. What this basically means is we all love seeing documents that say, we care. That's great. But it's becoming a bit more serious than that. And you need to have the data and the evidence to prove your sustainability objectives and your projects. The key thing here is your organization's is someone else's scope 3 emissions. The data request for your emissions is coming, whether you report voluntarily or not. If you're an SME and you're supplying to a big organization, you will be asked eventually to show your data. So then you have the cost of action and the cost of inaction. So in the UK, you see legislation talking about energy usage, where large SMEs even have to report on their energy use and report energy saving measures. This is a compliance exercise, but then you do see a 5 to 15% energy cost reductions in year one alone, because you take audits and you identify energy reduction measures. And as we see now, with energy prices fluctuating and going up and down, this is a key business driver. Contract wins from credible BRSR core compliance and SBTI commitments. So as companies like Mahindra, as the top 250 companies become more ESG mature, they will start asking their suppliers to be SBTI compliant. And so you have a greater opportunity here to bid for a large number of contracts. Like I spoke to you earlier about sustainability linked loans, there's a 5 to 25 base points margin reduction should you go for these ESG loans and meet the targets that they put forward. A lot of ESG reporting also has mandates on reporting on risks, physical and transitional climate risks. Now, this is a climate compliance exercise, if you choose it to be, but it could also be a strategic driver, because then you can map out your supply chain, you map out the risks in a warming world and put in plans to mitigate it. The compliance is there for a reason, for the business to be more resilient. The fourth R of the four currencies of leadership, so that's more about the resilience aspect. Finally, supply chain transparency is driving operational efficiency. So this is route optimization. These are fewer shipping loads. It's packaging regulation and efficiency. So all of these have clear benefit to business outcomes and business objectives. On the flip side, you have the cost of inaction, and it's almost the exact inverse. You have lost contracts. So you have being blacklisted from bidding on a contract if you don't have these ESG commitments in place. You're up against your competitors that already have started scope 1, 2, and maybe scope 3 disclosures and reduction pathways. You have the potential loss of EU export contracts. So H&M and Primark are good examples about the textile industry, which I'll get to in a little bit. You have CBAM exposure, as we spoke about earlier. So if you're not looking at your scope 1 and 2 and reductions, there's incoming tariffs to the EU and the UK. There's BRSR non-compliance. If you fall into that top 250 assured category or the top 1,000, if you're not compliant, there's a reputational risk, there's fines, there's ongoing damage to your public brand. And finally, there's reputational exposure as global clients audit international supply chains. So a good example of this is, the key example probably was in Bangladesh in 2012 or 2013, when sadly the manufacturing textile plant collapsed, and H&M, Primark, Target, all these big companies had to really assess their supply chain. So now they undertake audits, and if you don't comply, your contract's cancelled. You don't even have a public sort of avenue to improve. So the risk is really there, So that's the translation. We have the same data that we speak about as sustainability professionals, the same data and language we speak. We have to adjust it and change it for a different audience. So I'm going to go through these one by one, and just let me know what you think about it, because I often say things like, yes, we reduced scope 1 by 18% year on year. Great. For someone like me who understands that language and knows the impact of that, let's say for the environment or for the organization, it's great. But for a finance manager, that has no impact. So fuel fleet costs are down £240,000 or rupees year on year. There's a clear convergence between those two. We need science-based targets. We need SBTI. Now, as the other thing we know is there's a lot of acronyms in our industry. We love an acronym. So let's break that down a little bit and say, okay, clear examples. Mahindra and Tata are both SBTI committed. Our largest clients require this as a supply condition, and currently they're mapping out their supply chain. So in 2 or 3 years, that question, which is where you are, becomes a when will you be and why aren't you? So that's the risk that we need to, make it really clear when we communicate to our audience. BRSR core requires required assured data. What does that mean? So it means SEBI is expanding mandatory disclosure requirements. If we don't comply, there's risk. There's a risk here. There's a clear capital risk, there's reputational risk, and there's partnership risk. We should measure scope 3. So what's the benefit of measuring scope 3 other than the contracts? You can't assess your supply chain resilience, your exposure to CBAM. You can't assess your full footprint unless you start measuring scope 3. So again, look at the 4 R's of leadership and find out which one it best fits in. Risk, this one's more about resilience. And finally, offsets aren't enough. Now, I get asked about offsets a fair bit, and relying on offsets again, expose us to greenwashing claims. Offsets are a last resort as part of net zero. You want to reduce as much as you can before you rely on offsets. And as ESG rating frameworks tighten scrutiny, you lose ratings by saying we're carbon neutral because we've offset all our emissions. That stuff flies less and less now, you know. So let's look at this one-page business case. This is a template that you can use for any sustainability initiative across your organization or across your sector. First, you have to identify the problem. You know, what's the risk here? What's the missed opportunity here in financial terms, in clear dollar value? What's the problem? Are we at risk for losing a contract? Are we missing an opportunity here for increased contracts? Is there energy saving that's potential? So what's the proposed action for this? What are you recommending? What action are you saying that we should undertake, and what's the investment required? So let's say I want to start pushing my organization to start calculating scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. It's going to take time. It's going to cost capital. You might join a subscription-based carbon accounting software, so there's capital expenditure, you know, but I quantify it. How much does it cost? How much will it cost in year 1? And what is the benefit you'll get in year 1, 2, 3 moving forward? You know, it'll keep us open to these contracts for these suppliers, giving us a potential revenue of this. What's the expected return? So that's the next point. So is it going to reduce our risk to certain aspects? Is it going to increase our compliance? Is it going to protect our revenue with current contracts? You know, as we rebid for tender, more and more, they want to see you improving your sustainability disclosures. It's not just, oh, we've done scope 1 and 2 and we're done. It's how you're going to reduce them, how you're going to start including scope 3. You know, what's your journey looking like? And then timeline. So when does this start returning value? You see this a lot with energy saving measures, you know, replacing light bulbs or installing solar panels. What's the buyback time? You know, the CFO really wants to see what's the benefit we're going to get and how long is it going to take, and the ask. And I think this is the key one here. So what decision do you need from this meeting, from your leadership, to move forward and get this project done? What are you asking for? Are you asking for a certain level of capital expenditure? Are you asking for more human capital, human resources? Or are you just asking for the leadership approval and leadership oversight that this becomes a business priority? You know, ESG risk becomes a part of normal business decisions, just as financial risk does. So finally, there's a so what test. And I do this quite often when putting sustainability projects in front of someone. So it's a one line. So what does this mean for us in financial terms this year? Every data point that you put forward must pass this question before it goes in front of leadership. If you can't answer it clearly, it's not ready. And that's not about the science. You know, we trust the science, we trust the emissions, but it's about connecting these claims to a business outcome that the person in front of you cares about. You know, I do believe that businesses want to do the right thing. We want to do the right thing for the planet and for society. However, businesses and sustainability, the goals have to converge in order for it to, you know, drive real value. And so this so what test will really will drive that for you moving forward. I want to leave you now, this is my last slide. I want to leave you with just an action for this week. You know, identify your organization or a organization's top 3 material ESG risks. Now, your ChatGPT or your Claude is a good starting point for this, for sure, but you can become, and I would encourage you to become more contextual. So they can provide industry risks, but talk about your organization and their supply chain. Talk about these supply risks. Write one sentence or think about one sentence for each of these that translates the risk into a financial language the CFO would understand. So that's risk, reputation, revenue, and resilience. It needs to link to at least one of those. And that sentence will be the start of every business case you will make. And that's how you'll make it land. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I'll stop sharing my screen. I'll give it back to you, Vivek, and I'll answer your questions anytime.
Thank you very much, Devam. Really appreciate that. And I agree with you. Our industry is more about now acronyms. We have our own ABCDs, right? You have each word representing something, and we love acronyms, no doubt about it. Started with ESG, now we have everything, SDG, you name it, and we have an acronym for it. So thank you very much, Devam, for guiding today's audience with a lot of information, citing Indian case as well as US case. Appreciate that. Now let's go to another speaker. Next we have Madhukar Swambhuji, a water hero, a eco warrior, a TEDx speaker, He brings deep expertise in water conservation, nature-based solutions, and ecosystem restorations. Right. His work also focus on urban resilience and pollution mitigation, biodiversity conservation. So you name it, and he is there. So over to you, Madhukaji. Let's have your slides on the screen. I will be stopped. Navya, can you share your screen? Okay, so there are some delays. That's okay. So Ambaju, you can take over now while Navya is trying
Thank you,
to.
Vivek ji. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. Actually, if you look at it, whether you talk about pollution abatement, you talk about biodiversity conservation, you talk about reinstating the rural economy, you talk about ESG, UNSDG,
Holistic.
everything finally is linked to water. Now, as your focus is going to be on ESG and the economy that you can build out of ESG, I would like to focus more towards the revenue aspect of water. Okay. Now, when I say water, typically all the urban planners will come up with the revenue and the non-revenue water. Unfortunately, I'm not going to talk about any of those. So, what I'm going to talk about is if you understand water, you will be able to build a $50 trillion economy just out of understanding water. How you do that is what I'm going to explain into my slides. And as you can see, the topic is understanding water for its linkages with the sustainable planet. Ultimately, whether you talk about ESG ratings or SDG ratings, for the businesses, it is ultimately about how is it linked to my
Yeah,
revenue.
you have.
Yeah. You're
Sorry.
saying something, sir?
No, 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 no. I was just asking. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I'm just going to explain more about water and how do you generate revenue out of water. For that, the understanding of the water is very, very important. Navyaji, can we go, move on to the next slide? Yeah. So let's start understanding from the perspective of the myths that we know. Like we all know, water cycle is from ocean, there is evaporation, then in the cloud, there is condensation, and then finally it rains, right? That is the water cycle. The cycle gets completed. From water, it goes into the air, from air to the cloud, and from cloud back to the water. But here, the interesting fact is that there is no mention of groundwater, the aquifer. A country which is as massive as Bharat, 75% of the water needs are fulfilled by the groundwater. And there is no mention of groundwater into this entire cycle, right? We all know about rivers, and we've been taught into the school. I mean, even a fifth grade student can actually explain that this is the water cycle. We know that 97% of the water is saline on the planet. 2% are there into glaciers and to the north and the south pole. Only 1% of the water is drinkable. But where is that 1% water? People will say it is lakes and ponds and rivers and rivulet, right? Again, groundwater is missing. When a country like India depends 75% of the groundwater, it's not specific to Bharat. All across the globe, we have been extracting like anything, right? And we don't understand the linkages. If you look at the data for last 20 years, the amount of water extraction that we have done from the groundwater, the amount of recharge that we have done is less than a few percent, right? And we don't understand that the number of earthquakes across the globe last 20 years has gone up. It has catapulted by a few 100%. Why? Because water was kept beneath the surface for a purpose that was actually serving as a pneumatic shock absorber, right? If we look at let's say, rivers, when you have to drop water, let's say you hold a glass of water and you drop it, the water, if you want to drop it onto the ground, it will not go zigzag, it will go straight, right? Then why does a river follow the particular path which is zigzag, taking meanders, making oxbow lakes, and then finally lands onto the sea at one particular side? Like if we talk about a river as mighty as Ganga, it originates from Uttarakhand and doesn't go to Arabian Sea, it actually goes to the Bay of Bengal. Or if we talk about Brahmaputra, it starts from Tibet, travels all the way from China, and then enters into India from northeast, from Arunachal, goes via Assam, and then finally culminates into the Bay of Bengal, crossing Bangladesh. Why does the river take this path? Because surface water and groundwater are not in silos. They are interacting. They are interacting through soil capillaries. And this interaction only decides the path of the river, right? And then we are taught that rivers are taking all the water to the sea, to the ocean. Then if the surface river dries down, ideally ocean should also dry down. But fact of the matter is, if you study oceanography, you will come to know that when a surface river dries down, the ocean level goes up. Logically, it shouldn't be possible. So there are a lot of myths that we have, a lot of misconceptions that we have about the water bodies, about water, and that is what leads to all these kind of confusion. So when you don't understand a subject, obviously the decisions that you will be taking towards that particular subject will not be holistic, will not be actually uh, long term, not be visionary. So that is why today it is very much interesting to understand what water is all about, right? And I'm going to give you all the logical and the scientific facts so that you are able to relate to it, right? And once you understand water, I will also be covering about how do you generate revenue out of water. So Navyaji, can we go to the next slide? Now, this slide, we are going to talk about the uniqueness that we have in water. Like we all know water is H2O, but is it just H2O? For example, when all across this planet, whenever you freeze anything, it will get condensed. And water expands when frozen. That is why ice is lighter than water and it floats on water. Okay? Everything that we know at the room temperature will have only one form. It will be solid or liquid or gas. At room temperature, water on this planet can exist in all three forms. You know, it can be ice, which is solid. It can be water, which is liquid. It can be vapors, which is gaseous form. Right? Now, everything gets impacted with gravity. Right? Everything is pulled down by the gravity. But water has got a force working against gravity, which is called the buoyant force. That is why all the ships sail in water. Right? Now, another interesting fact is water, of course, is water. But if there is no water in the soil, which is the soil moisture, no seed will germinate. If there is no water in the air, no terrestrial animal can breathe, which is the moisture in the air, right? So it is the water that binds soil, water, and air. And the conjunction point is what we call as water bodies, right? So water bodies, if you actually look at the history of the human civilization on the planet, all the villages, all the cities, all the tourist destination, you will find one commonality. All of them are next to a water body. Whether it is a sea or a river or a lake or a rivulet doesn't matter. But they always have water bodies next to the habitation. And forget about the habitation on the planet. what are all these space agencies doing whenever they're going for exploration of a new celestial body, whether it is the moon or the Mars? They're actually looking for water. Because if water is there, then only life is possible, right? So we are searching for water on the other planet without caring for water on our own planet. See, this planet was blue first and then it became green. Now, if we want to restore the planet, again, we have to focus on blue first and then green will follow, right? So if you look at the ESG, E is environment. Environment will cause the society. So S is social. And when you have the society, you need governance. That is the G. ESG is kept like that for a purpose. It is not GSE, it is ESG, right? Neither it is SEG. Because environment comes first, society comes second, and then once you have the society, you need governance also, right? That's the path which the civilization is followed, right? So water is very, very important for restoration or for sustainability of the environment itself. So whether it is biodiversity, whether it is the urban heat island, whether it is the climate change, global warming, urban flooding, droughts, antimicrobial resistance, which is a medical problem, right? All of them are ultimately linked to water. People don't understand that even air pollution is linked to water. Because if the water bodies are not in healthy condition, the particulate matter will continue to float freely in the air. That is what we call as pollution. But if the water bodies are in healthy condition, the entire top surface of the water body is negatively charged, whereas the particulate matter are largely positively charged. So they'll naturally land onto the water body, get wet and sink in. Air pollution mitigation done. Right? So you want to improve your ESG rating as a corporate, or you want to improve your ESG rating as a urban local body, you need to ensure that you are adopting as many number of water bodies as possible and bring them back to good health. Cleaning doesn't help. The focus has to be to restore the ecosystem services from the water body to their respective vicinities. Navaji, can we move on to the next slide? Now we can talk about some of the recent scientific discoveries. Whatever I've been telling you has already been proven by scientists across the globe. So you can see 4 names on your screen. We'll start with the oldest one, that is Victor Schauberger from Austria. He was the one who spent his entire life to understand how does water move. We can see that the water flows like this. But then if the water is actually flowing horizontally, why does the whirlpool get formed? So the scientific reason behind that is water appears to be flowing horizontally, but the water molecules are moving in a spiral way. That is why wherever there is a ditch in the flow of the river, the water starts moving in a spiral way vertically. That forms the whirlpool. Now, this is yet another force which comes into action when the water forms a whirlpool. That is the centrifugal force which attracts everything downwards, whereas the buoyant force forces everything outwards. Okay, so that was Dr. Victor Schauberger from Austria. Masaru Emoto from Japan spent his entire life conducting experiments with the water crystals. And in his experiments, what he has proven that water can respond to the environment, water as a stimulus. So what he did was he took a bowl of water, he kept it into the slaughterhouse, another bowl of water into a monastery. After 24 hours, brought that both the pots back, took a drop of it and crystallized. And the crystal formation could actually give you a beautiful crystal from a monastery and a horrible crystal from the slaughterhouse. which means water is recording the stimulus of the environment. Then we have Dr. Jacques Benveniste from France, who was the first one to propose that water has got a memory. And the entire experiment was conducted in front of camera. It is already there on YouTube, which was done by Dr. Luc Montagnier, who is a Nobel laureate who won his Nobel Award for discovering HIV virus. He conducted an experiment on camera wherein he took a DNA infected, a person who is infected with HIV. So HIV infected DNA is not something that you find normally. And he put that into one test tube, kept it for some time, and then took one drop of water from that test tube, put it into another, then another, then another, and then finally he diluted it 24 times mathematically, which is equivalent to one drop in an ocean. And then he recorded the sound waves coming out of this test tube. He created a wave file, sent a mail to another set of scientists waiting for this mail to come in Milan, Italy. This entire experiment was happening in Paris. From Paris, via mail, the wave file was sent to Italy in Milan, and there the wave file was downloaded, and one fresh test tube of water from a tap in Milan was made to listen to this wave file for 3 hours, and after that they put a DNA binder, and the same DNA, HIV infected, could be created in this water. So what he has proven is water has got a memory, water can listen, water can talk, and water can work as per the instruction, right? So that is the power of water explored by modern science. Now, how does that impact the revenue generation into, in terms of the economics and the ESG and UN SDGs? If the water bodies are healthy, there are 5 kinds of credits which can be generated just by the water body being in a healthy condition. Water credit, sanitation credit, emission credit, carbon credit, and biodiversity credit. Into carbon credit itself, there are further 2 bifurcations. When the water body is in a sick condition, when it is unhealthy, when it is polluted, it is an emitter. Whereas when a water body is in healthy condition, it is a carbon sink. And this is the only structure minded across the globe which can move both ways. Otherwise, all the plants are sequestered and they will remain to be sequestered for the rest of their lives. All the animals are emitter and they'll remain emitter come what may. But water bodies, depending upon the health they are in, they can be an emitter or they can be a sink. Now just imagine when the water body is contaminated, we are creating a double impact in air. Number one, the sink becomes an emitter. So there is a double impact in the carbon emission. Number two, the air pollution, the particulate matter will not find a place to land. So particulate matter concentration will also continue to go up, right? And then once both these things are created, people around the water bodies will start getting sick. So that is the social impact of the water body being in healthy condition. If the water body is sick, it will only spread sickness all around. Waterborne diseases, vector-borne diseases, air pollution-borne diseases. But if the water body is healthy, it will spread only health all around. People will be healthier, happier, wealthier because they are not falling sick. They are in good health. Their work efficiency will go up. They will earn more. And people ultimately, if they are healthier, wealthier, and happier, obviously they'll be more prosperous. So water bodies are the key indicators of prosperity in a particular community, in a particular society, right? So that's the end of my presentation. I guess then is a thank you slide only, Navyaji. Can we just move on? Yeah, I remembered it correctly. So that's the end of the presentation. I would love to have more questions so that I can address. If I was able to inspire you with some questions, I would love to answer
Indeed,
those questions.
indeed. What a story of water. Wonderful. Sustainability brings so much into picture, so much historical context, so much, understanding today, which is essential for human being to know from alternative science or neuroscience, we must say. And that's the beauty of stuff that sometime which things which we think is trivial is actually is going to be essential very soon. Okay, so thank you very much both of the speaker. That was an insightful session. By the way, audiences and participants, we have some free gifts which my team member will be posting in YouTube chat window. So go ahead and watch out and be interactive. More interactive you will be, more gifts will be sending you your way. Also, we can it will be posted in the chat window for people who have joined us live. You can always ask questions. Meanwhile, I have some question for our team member. So let me start with that. And meanwhile, people can scan this and my team member is sending them the link directly. You can join our channel and download this gift directly from there. Now, thank you for that insightful session, Devam and Madhukaji. Really appreciate the depth and clarity you brought to a topic that often get lost between intent, execution, and specifically in boardroom. Devam, you must have seen that happening all the time. And here is a question for you, and I'm starting question answer with you first. You spoke about translating sustainability into financial language. In your experience, Devam, being in Australia and now in UK, what is that one mistake professional like us who think that they know everything now make when they try to convince leadership?
It's a good question, Vivek. I think there's two. One is that people know what we know. I think we've been studying this for a long time. We practice it a lot. So we assume that people understand what we're talking about in the acronym jungle, or when we're talking about even emissions, even little acronyms like tons of CO2. People don't know. So it's not about dumbing it down. I guess it is in a way, but it's more about making it make sense in a really clear context. I think that's one mistake. And the second mistake, I think it's really common, is we miss out on the why. So I think we move into this industry because we care. I think there's a lot of care and passion about making the world more resilient, more sustainable, better. I'll share an anecdote. I was pretty early in my career and I was leading a project for our office sites in my organization to switch to Indigenous owned recycled paper. I think the cost was in Australian dollars, maybe 500 to 1,000 a year, very minor for a multi-billion-dollar organization.
Indeed.
And the office manager said, sure, but why? I didn't have an answer. Because for me, it was obvious. It was, obviously, it's $1,000. And of course you do. It's the right thing to do. But this right thing to do gets lost in translation in businesses. And I think that's what I mean when we talk about translating it. We make the mistake of thinking everyone's on the same wavelength of sustainability is the right way forward. I think people do agree on that, but it's how. So it's okay. We want to switch to this paper because it shows our sustainability credentials, which will increase our bids in the future, etc.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. Thank you very much for citing two, not one. So 1 + 1, that is itself is a bonus. Yes, people, you can go ahead and ask question in YouTube chat window as well as on our Zoom window, whichever platform you are in, yeah, or even unmute yourself, start your camera, and we'll give you a chance to come speak. Mahesh, we can see many people are there from our batches, Diganta Kandu. But let me ask Madhukar Swambhuji in between, and my team member is still collecting some questions from YouTube where people are asking now. By the way, thank you very much for highlighting importance of water bodies in climate resilience. We always talk about it, but somehow corporates are not picking up. And here is the question for you on that purpose. What is that one practical action that a business or community can realistically start this year? What do you think? What you will suggest them as a quick, low-hanging fruit which they should start? I know you said adopting a water body, but apart from that.
See, I guess if we are expecting businesses to focus more on the social responsibility and less on business, that is absurd. See, businesses are there to make profits, but the focus that has started coming up with CSR and ESG and UNSDG ratings is primarily to make profits more responsible. In fact, there is a term called responsible steel already there in the market today, right? So when you talk about people like Jindal Steel and Tata Steel and all those big players, they are actually wanting to contribute towards responsible steel. And what is responsible steel? It is nothing but a manufacturing process that reduces the kind of emission which is done for the production of steel. Now, all I'm saying is, if you get a right ESG rating for your organization, you get a better price, right? The best of the market, if you want to export, whether it is steel or whether it is electronics or anything, when you are wanting to export, you get the best of the price in EU and US, right? You will not want to export to China where you will be squeezed on your export prices, right? And
True.
where when you have to export to EU and US, you get the best of the price, provided your ESG ratings are high. So I'm not saying that you adopt a water body or you work for social cause or you reduce your carbon footprint because you have to be socially aware. I'm saying focus on your profit. The profit will also come when you have the right ESG ratings, right? So focus where you want to focus, but be responsible because that is linked to your profits.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said there. I hope I'm audible again. Yeah, that's true. And that's what is bringing to me another question to our previous speaker, Devam. Devam, from your experience, of course, you have seen a lot of companies while, talking about your product to them, specifically in sustainability. If a company today had to prioritize, yes, Devam, just one ESG initiative this year, what would you suggest? Like Madhukar just now suggested a low hanging fruit. I want to hear from you as well. And there are few questions, Madhukar ji, for you. Dr. Mule has just asked. I will be asking that.
Yeah.
So let,
Yeah.
let, let me first get an answer from uh, Devam. Which initiative you will suggest for a business who might be your customer even for a maximum business impact? And what would you recommend and why?
You might not like my answer, Vivek, because my answer is it depends. It's contextual. So for a lot of companies, it'll be, if you're manufacturing, it'll be develop LCAs, life cycle assessments for your products.
Sure,
That's what your
sure.
customers are asking for. If
Sure.
you're professional services, it's your social impacts. Where are you going with your profits? What community developments are you doing? If you're in waste, what's your, land, diversion from landfill rates? So I think what's important is you need to work out the context in which you operate and then make your decisions from there. See what your stakeholders want and make the biggest impact from there. What's your contracts asking for? Generally speaking, scope 1 and 2 emissions is an easy win. Get your energy, because the other thing is you can reduce it and that saves costs. And you can put it on a nice dashboard on a marketing sustainability report. But if you want in-depth ESG wins, you have to look at your stakeholders and make it contextual.
Indeed. Thank you very much for a straightforward and clear answer. Of course, depends is not a clear answer, but still, thank you very much for that. Now, I will be taking one of the question from YouTube that somebody, Dr. Mule is asking why we are not more focused on groundwater recharge today. What is stopping us to focus there?
Okay. Let me just explain. When I say restore the health of the water bodies, to restore the ecosystem services from the water body to their respective vicinities. To give you a holistic answer from the groundwater recharge perspective, what happens is water bodies are conjunction point of soil, water, and air, right? Water molecule is bipolar, and this bipolar molecule is inside a bipolar earth, which is again impacted by moon's gravity and the sun's gravity. That is why we have high tides in full moon nights, right? So, logical, scientific, evident. Everyone whosoever is there on the shoreline would be knowing that every full moon night there is a high tide, right? Now, once you put a smaller magnet inside a bigger magnet, it will start rotating. That is why you find water bodies to have waves all the time, right? Now, I told you Dr. Victor Schauberger had spent his life to understand the movement of water, which is spiral. The water molecules are moving spirally inside because it is inside a bigger magnet. So in a water body, when it starts rotating, the soil beneath the water will get grinded due to the mixer grinder effect and it will form silt. One grain of silt is 32 times smaller than one grain of soil. So it will percolate down and it will keep going down till the time it hits the underground aquifer. Above the silt, we have water. So water will follow the silt particle and finally the surface water body will get linked to the underground aquifer. So if your water bodies are healthy, this capillary link will be functioning, which means every water body does a natural groundwater recharge provided it is in the healthy condition. With our technology, we have, every day, even as we speak right now, every day, there are more than 100 million liters of groundwater recharge happening across the country, right? So it's not that when you talk about water bodies, you're only talking about water or water pollution or air pollution or soil moisture or air moisture. Water body is a holistic apparatus of nature. Just think about it. 4.3 billion years is the age of the planet, right? First, water came, then came life, right? And we all know life began in oceans. And 73% of the globe was as it is water. So what was the need for nature to create landlocked water bodies? Because life began in ocean, moved to amphibia and then to terrestrial, right? The terrestrial life form needed a completely different ecosystem. The terrestrial beings are in need of sweet water, whereas marine ecology is absolutely fine with salinity of water. So, when nature created the first landlocked water bodies in terms of the pond or the lake or a river, the globe already had 73% of water. Water bodies have been created by nature to provide certain ecosystem services to the terrestrial ecology, to the terrestrial ecosystem. And that is holistic. Whether it is air pollution mitigation, water pollution mitigation, groundwater recharge, biodiversity conservation, everything comes naturally through this apparatus that we call as water body. So when I say water body should be healthy, that means it should be performing all its function, all its ecosystem services to the vicinity. That includes groundwater recharge. I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And there is one suggestion also came in on water itself, that we have enough water, but water management distribution is a major problem. And we need to make our water sources sustainable to avoid future crisis. So even audiences are now contributing to the
So
Thank you very much.
that's a resonance, I would say,
That's
because
resonance.
the best thing that we know is in last 4.3 billion years, not even a drop of water has gone outside of the planet. Whatever is there is still there. Then why do we have the water stress? It's only because we have contaminated the pristine sources, right? And if we restore them back to usable water, obviously the crisis will get addressed, because water was enough, water is enough. And if it was so simple that it is H2O, why can't we make it? Right? Everybody's got a RO plant these days, no? And now after Kangen coming into the market, everybody has got an alkaline water plant also available in the home.
Very good.
Right? Then why don't we do electrolysis and we produce water molecule? Right? If it was so simple, it was just H2O, right? Clearly, water is way beyond H2O. Like it's like I giving you my blood report and asking you how am I feeling today. Obviously, I'm way beyond the blood chemistry of mine, right? My mood is not dependent on my blood report. There is a chemistry, there is a biology, there is a physics. Everything put together creates ecology. And water bodies are an ecological phenomena which is contributing towards life. And it is not proprietary to human beings. Any life form cannot exist without water. So we have to restore what we have destroyed.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. Really helpful, Madhukaji. We will stop the session Q&A till the time new question comes. Let me go back to our slides. Let me conclude there as well. There are few slides that what are the key ESG tracks are available now. So let me cover that part and then we will come back and thank you, vote of thanks, and we will conclude the session. So today rules which are combining regulatory knowledge, financial acumen and climate science are commanding centerpiece in sustainability. So anybody who wants to make a career, these are the few jobs which are really making a lot of noise in the market with huge salaries even in India, across world as well. So few of the jobs are in GHG accounting, carbon market specialist, ESG reporting. So if you know how to develop TCFD based, IFRS based or GRI based report, you are in demand. Sustainable finance is a big area and a lot of money is flowing in this area for people who have experience and can make a dent in this field. We also have a huge scope for large many people to come into a scope 3 supply chain decarbonization. Of course, right now, this is what Devam was talking about, that MSME has to pick it up, but might not be, they have, demand backed by the currency, but slowly the large company will start investing in their supply chain and the opportunity will be enormous as well. Last but not least, remember ESG strategy consultant or net zero advisors are well in demand and they have a great job as well, right? Navya is watching the YouTube questions as well. We will be picking up the last and least. How we can help you? Of course, we can help you with consulting and upskilling both sides. These are few services we offer. We work alongside with the organization on ESG transition, GHG accounting, ESG reporting and SOP developments. Programs which we have built for short term like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, you can join those as well and look into what interests you. You can also book a one-to-one call and join our channel for such kind of future events happening regularly. Now that is bringing me to thank to all my audiences who have joined in such a big number today. And first of all, let me thank both of you, Devam and Madhukaji, for incredible insight. What stands out is today, whether it is water security or business strategy, which Devam is making or Madhukaji is doing, the cost of inaction is clearly higher than the cost of action, right? And that is most important. So thank you once again to our speakers for sharing such ideas, but showing us that action actually look like this in real world. The case study, the one-pager business case, wonderful job, Devam. Yeah, I think a lot of marketing consultant will require that kind of stuff. And today, because it is at the end of the day, sustainability isn't about awareness anymore now. It's all about who moved first and who gets left reacting, right? It's today conversation is sparked even one thought. Don't let it fade the moment you walk out of this room. We are building a community with professionals like you, like Madhukar, like Devam, who are not here just sharing their knowledge or learning ESG, but actually applying it where it counts, in business, in decisions, and in outcomes. So join our WhatsApp channel, YouTube channel. The links are getting posted right now in the WhatsApp of YouTube. You can join that and come back with when we are back on 27th. Listen in, we will be talking a new topic with a new guest and new discussion. Till then, take care, bye bye, and see you soon. Thank you, and we'll look forward
Thank you.
to this journey together. Thank you very much. Thank you, Devam. Thank you, Madhukaji. Thank you, Mahesh, Diganta, Navya, everyone who joined this program. Appreciate it. See you soon.